I was sitting in the front row of Mount Zion Baptist Church, watching my daughter Simone adjust her veil in the mirror, when she turned to me with eyes colder than I'd ever seen. "Mama, I need you to leave." The wedding coordinator was still fussing with the flower arrangements. Guests were filing into their seats. The organ was playing softly. I thought I misheard her. "Baby, what did you say?" "I said I need you to leave. Now." Simone's voice was sharp, cutting through the sacred air of the church like a knife. "You're embarrassing me just sitting there in that cheap dress. And honestly, I realize now that having you here at all was a mistake." My heart stopped. Around us, people were starting to stare. Sister Margaret from the choir looked away quickly. Deacon Williams cleared his throat. "Simone, honey." "I don't understand." "Of course you don't understand," she laughed, but it was cruel. "You never understand anything. Look at you. Look at this dress." She gestured at the lavender dress I'd bought special for today, the nicest thing I'd owned in years. "You look like somebody's poor auntie who wandered in off the street. You're ruining my aesthetic. My photographer specifically said everyone needed to look elegant, and you look cheap." The words hit me like physical blows. Guests were openly watching now. Some were whispering. I saw Simone's bridesmaids, girls I'd helped pay for college, smirking behind their bouquets. "Baby, I'm your mama. I raised you. You raised me?" Simone's voice got louder. "You kept me alive, barely. You worked your little housekeeping jobs and acted like that made you special. Meanwhile, I had to watch my friends' parents give them everything while you gave me nothing but excuses and old clothes." My hands were shaking. This was my baby girl, my only child, the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for after her daddy died when she was 3 years old. "Simone, please, can we talk about this later? It's your wedding day." "Exactly. It's my day. And I don't want you here. Security!" She snapped her fingers, and 2 men in suits started walking toward me. "Please escort my mother out. She's not invited to this wedding." Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me tell you how I got to that moment, sitting in that church pew, being thrown out of my own daughter's wedding like yesterday's trash. My name is Ruth Washington, and I'm 67 years old. I've lived in Atlanta my whole life, born and raised in a little house on the west side that my parents worked themselves to the bone to keep. I married my high school sweetheart, Jerome, when I was 21. We had Simone 2 years later, and for a few beautiful years, life was perfect. Then Jerome died. Heart attack at 32 years old. Just dropped dead at his construction job one Tuesday afternoon. Didn't even get to say goodbye. I was 30 years old with a 3-year-old daughter and exactly $842 in our savings account. Jerome's life insurance barely covered the funeral. His mama wanted us to move in with her, but I couldn't do it. She meant well, but that woman would have taken over raising Simone, and I needed to be my baby's mama, not just another person in the house. So I worked. Lord, how I worked. I cleaned houses during the day, big fancy houses in Buckhead, where white folks paid me decent money to scrub their toilets and dust their expensive furniture. At night, I worked at the hospital, cleaning floors and emptying trash cans. Simone stayed with Miss Betty next door, an older lady who watched kids for cheap and always made sure Simone had dinner. I didn't sleep much, maybe 4 hours a night. But I kept us in our little house. I kept food on the table. I made sure Simone had school supplies and clothes that fit, even if they came from the thrift store. I showed up to every parent-teacher conference. I was there for every school play, even when I had to miss work and lose that day's pay. When Simone was in middle school, she started changing. She made friends with girls whose parents had money, doctors, lawyers, business owners. These girls had the new Jordans, the designer bags, the birthday parties at fancy hotels. Simone started coming home quiet, staring at our worn furniture and small TV with something that looked like shame. "Mama, why can't we have nice things like Kayla's family?" she asked me one night when she was 13. Baby, we have what we need, I told her, stirring a pot of beans on the stove. We have each other. We have this roof over our heads. We have food and love. That's not what I asked. Her voice was cold even then. Why are we poor? We're not poor, Simone. We're just not rich. There's a difference. She rolled her eyes and went to her room. That was the beginning of the distance between us. But I kept working. I kept sacrificing. When she wanted to go to Spelman College, I took out loans I knew I'd never be able to pay back. I worked 3 jobs to help cover what the loans didn't. I sent her money every month for books, for food, for emergencies. When she called crying because she couldn't afford to go to the Bahamas with her friends for spring break, I sent her $500 I'd been saving for new tires. My car broke down 3 times that year because those tires were bald. I took the bus for 6 months. But Simone got her trip. After college, she got a job at a marketing firm in Midtown. Good job, made decent money. But it was never enough for her. She wanted the luxury apartment, the expensive brunches, the designer clothes. And somehow, I was always the one she called when she came up short. Mama, I'm about to get evicted. Can you send me $2,000? Mama, I crashed my car. I need $1,500 for the deductible. Mama, I have a job interview and I need a new suit. Can you help? Every time I sent the money, I emptied my little savings account over and over. I took extra shifts until my knees screamed and my back ached all night. I ate rice and beans for weeks so I could wire money to my daughter who was eating $50 steaks with her friends. My sister Diane warned me. Ruth, that girl is using you, she said one Sunday after church, watching Simone talk on her new iPhone, the one I'd helped her buy, without even glancing our way. She calls you her personal ATM machine to her friends. I heard her. She's my daughter, I said. That's what mothers do. No, baby. Mothers sacrifice. But children are supposed to appreciate it, not exploit it. I didn't want to believe her. Simone was just young, ambitious. She'd grow out of it. Then she met Darnell. Darnell Thompson was 35 years old, handsome, educated, and rich. His family owned a chain of barbershops and hair salons across Atlanta. He had a nice car, a beautiful condo, and manners that would make any mama proud. When Simone brought him to meet me, I liked him immediately. Ms. Ruth, Simone tells me you're the strongest woman she knows, he said, shaking my hand with genuine warmth. Raised her all by yourself, worked 3 jobs. That's real love. I saw Simone flinch a little when he said that, like she was embarrassed. They dated for 2 years. In that time, I barely saw Simone. She was always busy with Darnell, fancy dinners, trips to Miami, weekends in the mountains. When she did call, it was usually because she needed something. Mama, Darnell's taking me to meet his parents in Martha's Vineyard, and I need a new wardrobe. Can you send 1,000? I sent 800. It was all I had. When Darnell proposed, Simone posted pictures on Facebook before she even called to tell me. I found out my daughter was engaged by scrolling through social media at 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep from back pain. When she finally called 3 days later, she sounded annoyed. Mama, I was going to tell you. I've just been so busy planning. Planning, baby, he just proposed. I know, but I want everything perfect. This is going to be the wedding of the year. Everybody who's anybody will be there. Something in her voice made my stomach hurt. Where do you need me to help? I can cook for the reception. Or help set up. She laughed. Actually laughed. Mama, no. We're hiring professionals for everything. This isn't going to be some little church basement reception. This is a real wedding. That hurt. My wedding to her daddy had been in a church basement, with food our families cooked and decorations we made ourselves. It had been beautiful. Okay, well, what can I do? Silence. Then, honestly, just show up in something nice. And Mama, please don't tell people you clean houses. Darnell's family they're upper class. I don't want them to think we're, you know, poor? Low class, she corrected. There's a difference. I wanted to say that the only difference was that one was honest and the other was pretending, but I swallowed it down like I'd been swallowing down hurt for years. The months before the wedding were torture. Simone called with demands disguised as requests. She needed money for the dress alterations, money for the bridesmaids' gifts, money for the rehearsal dinner venue deposit because Darnell's parents were being difficult about something. I gave her everything I had. I cashed out the tiny retirement account I'd been building. I took out a payday loan at an interest rate that should have been illegal. I sold my mama's ring, the only piece of jewelry I had left from her. My sister Diane found out about the ring and called me crying. "Ruth, Mama would turn over in her grave. That ring was supposed to go to Simone." "It is going to Simone," I said tiredly. "Just indirectly. Baby, when are you going to see that girl doesn't care about you? She cares about what you can give her." "She's going through a stressful time," I defended. "Weddings are hard." But deep down, I knew Diane was right. I just didn't want to admit that I'd raised a daughter who saw me as nothing but a resource to drain. The week before the wedding, I went to buy my dress. I'd been saving $50 here and there from my housekeeping jobs. I had $300 cash. I went to a nice store in the mall, hoping to find something that would make Simone proud. Everything was too expensive. The cheapest dress that looked wedding appropriate was $450. I stood in that dressing room, staring at myself in a beautiful lavender dress that I couldn't afford, and I cried. The saleswoman, a young black woman named Tanisha, knocked softly. "You okay in there?" I told her the truth. I don't know why. Maybe I just needed someone to hear me. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm going to ring this up as damaged merchandise. It'll be $200. And that's not charity. This dress has been here for 8 months, and we need to clear inventory anyway." I hugged her and cried some more. On the morning of the wedding, I got up at 5 a.m. I did my hair myself, twisting and pinning until it looked decent. I put on my makeup carefully, foundation from the dollar store that didn't quite match, but close enough. I put on that lavender dress and my one good pair of shoes, and I looked in the mirror. I looked tired, old. The dress was pretty, but I could see what Simone would see. A 67-year-old housekeeper trying to look like she belonged in a fancy church with rich people. But I was her mama. I had every right to be there. I took the bus to Mount Zion Baptist Church. Simone had offered me a ride with her bridesmaids, but then uninvited me, saying the car was too full. So I took 2 buses, carrying my small purse and the card I'd written for her, full of love and prayers and memories of raising her. When I walked into the church, it was transformed. Thousands of dollars worth of flowers everywhere. A string quartet playing. Tables set up for a reception that probably cost more than I made in 2 years. I saw Darnell's family. His mama in a cream-colored dress that probably cost $1,000. His daddy in a custom suit. His sisters dripping in diamonds. They looked at me like I was the help. I found my seat in the front row, the mother of the bride, and I sat down, clutching my purse, trying to make myself small. That's when Simone came out from the bride's room and saw me. And that's when my world ended. "Security, please escort my mother out. She's not invited to this wedding." The 2 security guards looked uncomfortable. One was an older black man who looked at me with pity in his eyes. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," he said softly. "We're just doing our jobs." I stood up on shaking legs. The entire church was silent now, watching. 300 people watched as I, Ruth Washington, was escorted out of my own daughter's wedding like a criminal. I walked down that aisle, the same aisle I would have watched Simone walk down as a bride, with tears streaming down my face. Behind me, I heard Simone say loudly, "I'm sorry everyone had to see that. Some people just don't know when they're not wanted." Laughter. Actual laughter from some of the guests. The security guard walked me to the door, and just as he was about to open it, I heard a voice. Wait! It was Darnell. He was standing at the altar, his face twisted in an expression I couldn't read. Disgust? Anger? Horror? "What did you just do?" he asked Simone, his voice carrying through the church. Simone's smile faltered. "Baby, she didn't fit the aesthetic and—" "Did you just throw your own mother out of your wedding?" His voice was getting louder. "Your mother? The woman who raised you alone? The woman who worked 3 jobs so you could go to Spelman?" The church went silent again, but this time the energy was different. Simone laughed nervously. "Darnell, you don't understand. She's been a burden my whole life. I've had to take care of her, send her money, deal with her drama." "That's a lie," Darnell said, and his voice was cold now. Ice cold. "That's a damn lie, and you know it." He started walking toward me, his face set with determination, and I had no idea what was about to happen next. Darnell walked past me and stood in front of the entire congregation. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "I need to tell y'all something," he said. "And Simone, you need to hear this too." Simone's face went pale. "Baby, please, let's talk about this later." "No, we're talking now, in front of God and everybody." He turned to face the crowd. "About 6 months ago, I started noticing that Simone's stories didn't add up. She told me her mama was difficult, demanding, always asking for money. She said she'd been supporting Ms. Ruth for years because her mama couldn't manage money." My mouth fell open. That was the opposite of the truth. "So I did something I probably shouldn't have," Darnell continued. "I hired a private investigator. I wanted to know the truth about my future mother-in-law before I married into this family." Simone tried to move toward him, but his mama, who I'd never met, held up a hand to stop her. "What I found out," Darnell said, his voice breaking slightly, "was that everything Simone told me was a lie. Ms. Ruth never asked her for money. Simone asked her mama for money, constantly, thousands and thousands of dollars over the years. Money that Ms. Ruth got by working herself to the bone, taking out loans she couldn't afford, selling her own mama's jewelry." Gasps went through the church. I saw Darnell's mama put her hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. The investigator showed me bank records, text messages, everything. Ms. Ruth sent Simone over $60,000 in the last 5 years alone. Money for rent, cars, clothes, trips, things Simone told me she paid for herself. She's been lying to me about everything. "Those records are fake!" Simone shouted, but her voice was desperate now. "Darnell, she probably made them up to turn you against me." "Your mama doesn't even know I hired an investigator," Darnell said quietly. "Does she, Ms. Ruth?" I shook my head, unable to speak. Darnell pulled out his phone and held it up. "I also found out about the calls. Simone called her mama 2 weeks ago and told her she couldn't come to the wedding unless she contributed $5,000 to the catering. Ms. Ruth cashed out her retirement account, her only retirement account, to send that money. Simone told me that money came from her savings." The church erupted in shocked whispers. Darnell's father stood up, his face thunderous. "And you know what's really messed up?" Darnell continued, tears streaming down his face now. "Ms. Ruth sent that money even though Simone had been treating her like trash for months. Even though Simone uninvited her from dress shopping, from the rehearsal dinner, from every part of this wedding. She sent the money because she loved her daughter and wanted her to be happy." I was sobbing now, unable to hold it in. The security guard who'd been escorting me out handed me a handkerchief. Simone was crying too, but it was different. Ugly, desperate tears. "Darnell, please, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been using your mama like an ATM machine while telling me and my family that she was the problem? How you were embarrassed by the woman who sacrificed everything for you?" He shook his head. "I asked you 100 times if you were close to your family. You said your mama was toxic, that she'd made your life hard, that you'd had to overcome her to become successful. All lies." Darnell's mama stood up and walked over to me. She was a beautiful woman, elegant in her cream dress, and she took both my hands in hers. "Ms. Ruth, I am so sorry," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know. If I had known what my son was marrying into," she turned to glare at Simone. "This wedding is over." "Mama, no!" Simone screamed. "You can't. This isn't your decision." "It's my decision," Darnell said firmly. "And I've made it. There's not going to be a wedding. Not today, not ever. I can't marry someone who treats their own mama like this, who lies like this, who's so cold that she'd throw out the woman who raised her on her wedding day because she didn't match the decorations." He pulled off his boutonniere and dropped it on the floor. "I'm sorry to everyone who came here expecting a wedding. There's food at the reception hall. It's paid for, so please go eat. But there won't be a marriage today." Darnell walked over to me and took my hand. "Ms. Ruth, I'm sorry I didn't stop this sooner. I should have confronted Simone weeks ago, but I wanted to believe she'd do the right thing on her own. I was wrong." "It's not your fault, baby," I whispered. "Can I drive you home?" he asked. "Please, it's the least I can do." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As we walked toward the door, Simone ran after us. Mama, wait, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Please, you have to fix this. Tell Darnell I'm not like that." I turned to look at my daughter. Really look at her. This woman in her $10,000 wedding dress, with her professionally done makeup running down her face, begging me to save her. "Baby," I said quietly, "I can't fix this. I can't fix you. I tried for 37 years to love you enough, give you enough, sacrifice enough. But it was never enough for you. And I'm tired, Simone. I'm so tired." "But I'm your daughter." "Yes, you are. And I love you. But I don't like who you've become, and I can't keep letting you hurt me because I gave birth to you." I walked out of that church with my head up. Darnell drove me home in silence at first. Then, softly, he said, "My mama wanted to meet you properly. She feels terrible about all this. Would you be willing to come to Sunday dinner this week?" I looked at him in surprise. "Why?" "Because you're a good woman who deserves respect. And because I still want to know my almost mother-in-law, even if I'm not marrying her daughter." That made me smile for the first time all day. The next few weeks were hard. Simone called me 63 times. I didn't answer. She sent text messages, first angry, then pleading, then angry again. She showed up at my house twice. I didn't open the door. My sister Diane came over with groceries and wine. "I'm proud of you," she said, pulling me into a hug. "I know this hurts, but baby, you did the right thing." "Did I, though? She's my daughter. What kind of mother gives up on their child?" "Ruth, you didn't give up on her. She gave up on you years ago. You just finally stopped pretending otherwise." The story spread through our community like wildfire. People I barely knew stopped me at the grocery store to tell me they'd heard what happened and they were sorry. Some of them shared their own stories, children who'd used them, betrayed them, forgotten them. But something else started happening too. People started reaching out with kindness. Sister Margaret from the church choir invited me to join. She said they needed an alto and I used to sing beautifully. Miss Betty, my old neighbor, called to check on me. Even Tanisha from the dress store somehow found my number and called to make sure I was okay. "That dress looked beautiful on you," she said. "I'm sorry you didn't get to wear it the way you deserved." I kept the dress hanging in my closet. Maybe I'd wear it somewhere else someday. Darnell kept his word about Sunday dinner. His family welcomed me with open arms, treating me with the respect and warmth I'd craved from my own daughter. His mama, Patricia, hugged me tight when I arrived. "You raised that girl by yourself, worked 3 jobs, and gave her everything," she said. "That took real strength. And what she did to you, that's on her, not you. Don't you ever think otherwise?" Over fried chicken and collard greens, Darnell's family asked me about my life, my interests, my dreams. When was the last time anyone asked me about my dreams? I always wanted to go back to school, I admitted. I was good at math when I was young. Used to think maybe I could be an accountant or something. Why didn't you? Darnell's sister Keisha asked. Life, I said simply. Jerome died. Simone needed raising, bills needed paying, dreams got put aside. You're 67, not dead, Patricia said firmly. Community college has programs for seniors, free classes. You should look into it. The idea seemed crazy. Me back in school at my age? But that night I looked it up, and she was right. There were programs, financial literacy classes, basic accounting, computer skills. I enrolled the next week. About a month after the wedding that wasn't, I got a letter from Simone, not a text, an actual handwritten letter. Inside was a check for $10,000. The letter said, Mama, I know I can't undo what I did. I know I hurt you worse than anyone should ever hurt their mother. Darnell leaving me made me look at myself for the first time in years, and I don't like what I see. I've been spoiled, selfish, and cruel. I used you and told myself I deserved it because I'd had a hard childhood. But I didn't have a hard childhood. I had a poor childhood with a mama who loved me more than anything. I'm in therapy now. Real therapy. And I'm working on myself. This check doesn't come close to what I owe you, in money or apologies, but it's a start. I'm paying you back. All of it. Even if it takes me years. You don't have to forgive me. You don't have to talk to me. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. And I'm trying to be better. I love you, Mama. I'm sorry it took losing you to realize how much. I cried reading that letter. Then I cashed the check and paid off my payday loans. I didn't call her back. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. The wound was still too fresh. I started my classes at the community college. Turns out, I was still good at math. Real good. My instructor, Professor James, a retired accountant, told me I had a gift. Have you thought about doing taxes? He asked. I run a small tax prep business during tax season. I could use help and I'd train you. Pays decent. So at 67 years old, I became a tax preparer. Part-time during tax season, but it was something. Something that was mine, that used my brain, that made me feel valuable for who I was, not what I could give. The church choir became my social life. Sister Margaret introduced me to her book club. I made friends, real friends who wanted to spend time with me because they enjoyed my company, not because they needed something. One Saturday, Darnell called me. Ms. Ruth, my mama wants to know if you'd come to our family reunion next month in South Carolina. She's serious. She considers you family whether Simone is in the picture or not. That's sweet, baby, but I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition. You're invited. Please come. We want you there. So I went to a family reunion with people who weren't related to me by blood but treated me better than my own daughter ever had. We ate too much, laughed too loud, played spades until midnight. Patricia's sister Helen and I became fast friends. She was a retired teacher who loved to travel, and she invited me on a bus trip to Nashville with her church group. I went. It was my first real vacation in 40 years. On that trip, sitting in a gospel music hall in Nashville, listening to a choir that made me cry with how beautiful they sounded, I realized something. I was happy. Actually, truly happy. Maybe for the first time since Jerome died. I'd spent 37 years trying to make Simone happy, pouring all my love and energy and money into a daughter who saw me as a resource to exploit. And now, free from that burden, I was finally living. About 3 months after the wedding, Simone showed up at my door again. But this time was different. She didn't bang on the door or demand entry. She just sat on my porch steps and waited. I watched her through the window for a while. She looked different, thinner, tired. Her hair was natural, pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer clothes, just jeans and a plain shirt. Finally, I opened the door. "Mama," she said, standing up quickly. "Thank you for opening the door. I know I don't deserve it." "You're right. You don't. But I'm listening anyway. You've got 5 minutes." She nodded, tears already falling. "I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you except maybe, someday, a chance to earn back your trust. I lost Darnell. I lost my job. Turns out when everyone knows you publicly humiliated your mama, companies don't want you representing them. I lost my apartment because without your money and Darnell's, I couldn't afford it. I'm living with a roommate now in College Park. And I'm glad." Glad? Losing everything made me see what I'd become. I was terrible, Mama. Cruel and selfish and ungrateful. And I blamed you for my problems when you were the only person who ever really loved me unconditionally. She wiped her tears. "I'm in therapy twice a week. I'm working as a waitress. Not glamorous, but honest work. And I'm sending you $500 every month until I pay back every penny I took from you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be the daughter you deserved." We stood there in silence for a moment. Then I said, "I appreciate you telling me this, but I'm not ready to let you back in my life yet. Maybe someday. For now, you keep working on yourself. You keep being better. And when I'm ready, if I'm ready, I'll let you know." She nodded, more tears falling. "That's fair. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. I always will. But love isn't enough anymore. There has to be respect, too." She left, and I watched her walk to her car, an old Honda, not the Mercedes she used to drive. She was learning. Maybe someday we'd rebuild what she'd broken. But it would be on my terms, in my time. I went back inside my little house, the same house I'd been struggling to keep my whole life. But it felt different now, lighter. It was mine, truly mine, not a place I maintained for someone else's benefit. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Game night at our house Friday. You better be there. Keisha is bringing her famous peach cobbler." I smiled and texted back, "I'll be there." That night, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea, looking at all the new things in my life, the textbooks from my accounting class, the photos from the Nashville trip, the invitation to Helen's birthday party next month, the schedule for choir practice. For 67 years, I'd been Ruth the mother, Ruth the worker, Ruth the sacrifice. Now I was just Ruth. And Ruth was doing just fine. My daughter had kicked me out of her wedding, thinking she was casting off dead weight. Instead, she'd set me free. Free to discover that I was more than just a source of money and support. Free to find people who valued me. Free to build a life that was mine. It was the best gift she ever gave me, even if she didn't mean it that way. And you know what? It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to find your worth. It's never too late to say enough to people who use you, even if they're your own blood. I'm 67 years old, taking college classes, preparing taxes, singing in a choir, going on trips with friends, and living my life. My daughter is working on becoming better, and maybe one day we'll find our way back to each other. Or maybe we won't. Either way, I'll be okay. Because I finally learned the most important lesson. You can't pour from an empty cup, and I spent decades running on empty for someone who never appreciated it. Now my cup is full, and I'm not apologizing for that anymore. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.